Hi Charlie. So,
Thanks, Simon.
thanks for coming to chat to us today. So just for everyone watching the video, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Charlie Buchanan. I'm a fourth year PhD student with Professor Andy Baldwin, part of the Kavli Institute of Nanoscience Discovery. And yeah, we study nuclear magnetic resonance, particularly with a focus on understanding proteins.
Okay, excellent. And actually it's proteins that we're going to focus on today with your exciting new paper. So can you just briefly give us an outline of the work in your paper?
Yeah, sure. So we were essentially looking at how the SARS-CoV-2 virus might interact with the sugars that coat our airways, with an obvious focus on how that might have implications for the disease.
Can you tell us the main take-home message of the work that's described in your recent paper?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things. So essentially, as I said at the beginning of the pandemic, we had this question about whether the sugars that coat the airways of our cells that are on the surface of our airways, whether they may interact with the SARS-CoV-2 viral particle. And so we had this question, and we basically had to design a method to be able to unpick this, right? It's quite a difficult question, it turns out, because of the nature of the two systems. The human body is very complicated, of course, and the SARS-CoV-2 virus is very complicated. So we had to try and sort of develop a new technique to understand this. And so there are both methodological advancements that we've done, which is a huge amount of the paper really, and hopefully actually presented a new technique to be able to do this, not just for SARS-CoV-2, but for other viruses and other sort of not just sugars, but also drugs and other things that we might be able to probe the interaction between, if that makes sense. Okay. But then there's the other side of stuff, which is the SARS-CoV-2 conclusions and the fact we did find an interaction between the sugars and the viral particle, where my interest lies in it. So
I think the interaction of the viral particle with surfaces in general, I mean, okay, you've got it with sugars in our airways, but in general, sort of, you don't want to be catching COVID by touching something that someone else has touched.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so that area, I think, of just how, how can we make surfaces infections proof? So what do you think was the most challenging part of the project?
Well, I think as I said, it's a long project, and there was a lot of there are actually a huge number of collaborators, and I think that's a very important point to stress. Like this sort of research, developing a new technique, there were many components to the research.
Sure.
And so we had something like 40 authors on the paper. And so actually a lot of it was coordinating all of that and trying to sort of bridge knowledge gaps. So some people knew about the sugars, some people knew about SARS-CoV-2, some people, me and my supervisor, knew about the NMR, which is the technique that we've sort of used to unpick this. And so it was actually a lot about communicating between all the people and trying to sort of coordinate a really big project, especially in lockdown.
And finally, just to finish off, did you enjoy it all?
Yeah, I think it was enormously rewarding, and I look back at the sort of confidence I had at the beginning, and it was a lot lower than it is now in terms of how to lead the project, how to sort of, as I say, pick up the phone and talk to people without being embarrassed or without being like worried. And I've also learned a lot about how to push through to the finish line, because we actually sort of submitted the paper a few times and got rejected a couple of times, and these sorts of things, which were quite difficult actually. And there was this sort of long period. I think we first submitted in November 2020, so
wow.
We're finally accepted in, where are we? May? June? June of 2022. So it's been a long process, and I think learning to navigate that is a great experience. Probably one I wouldn't want to repeat, but it was a great experience. So yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for coming to chat to us, and congratulations on a fantastic paper.
Oh, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome.